For this cycle's lower accessory work, we have barbell good mornings, hip extension hold, Jefferson curl, and clamshells. So we're gonna go over those 4 movements right now. We're gonna head over near the GHD and go over how to perform those movements, what we're looking for, some common faults, things we know we want to avoid while doing those movements. And the first one we'll go over is the barbell good morning. We're gonna be using an empty bar for this. You can go with an empty 35-pound bar, empty 45-pound bar, that's really up to you. We're gonna take the bar, we're gonna put it across our shoulders. We're gonna have a grip as if we're gonna be doing a back squat. Then from here, I know a lot of us have done this during warm-up, so we're pretty familiar with the movement. We're gonna let the legs have a small bend to them. We're not keeping those legs completely locked out. Small bend to the legs. And then from here, you wanna think shoulders forward, so they go in front of your toes, and your hips back, like they're reaching towards the wall behind you. So we're gonna go down, and then we're gonna stand up. And what we're looking for here is tension in our hamstrings. So in the back of the legs, we're looking to feel tension back here. We're not looking for it in our lower back. So sometimes when the weight gets heavier or we try to move too fast, we tend to round through our lower back, so it looks like this. And we lose that tension in the hamstrings in that position. Sometimes it's easy to also start treating it like a squat, where our hips descend too much and they don't go back far enough and our shoulders don't go far enough forward. So again, we want those hips to go back, shoulders to come forward, slow and controlled, and then we stand. And you can see, I'm not going down that far. For me, my hamstrings are a little tighter. They're not super tight, but I only go as far as I can move well. So if I were to go beyond this position, in order to go lower, I would have to round my back, drop my chest, and that's no good. We're not looking for that. So again, hips go back, shoulders come forward. I can feel this in my hamstrings, and I stand back up. So that's movement number 1. That's for back here. We should be feeling it there. If you're not feeling that, then definitely ask the coach in class to take a look to offer some corrections. Sometimes it's very obvious, other times it's a little more nuanced. Sometimes it's setting your shoulders in place, or it's keeping your midline nice and neutral and not rounding. So that's movement 1. Movement 2 is off of the GHD. We're going to perform a hip extension hold. Right, we're not doing hip extensions, we're not moving. We're holding a static position. I'm gonna start with my legs straight. My hips should be beyond the pad. Now, if you feel this a lot in your quads, just slide the pads back 1 notch. So if I'm here, I'm going to hold this hip extension position. Now, when I'm holding that position, there's a few things that I wanna think about doing and not doing. Number 1 is I don't want to excessively flare out my rib cage. I want to keep everything nice and neutral. So I'm pulling my belly button in and avoiding overarching my lower back. That's number 1. Number 2 is I want to think about using my posterior. So I'm trying to squeeze my glutes to hold me in that position. All right. Number 3 is I want to have a pretty flat, uniform surface. I don't want my shoulders to be excessively high or excessively low when compared to my hips. I'd like to be as close as possible to parallel to the floor. So one last time, I'm beyond the GHD. Hips are beyond the pad. Trying to keep as flat a line as possible between my shoulders and my hips. And you can really start to feel that get taxing. And again, the posterior chain. So that's movement 2. Movement 3 is the Jefferson curl. The Jefferson curl, for a lot of us, we're gonna wanna go off an elevated surface. It can be a 20-inch box, can be a 12-inch box. It really depends on your hamstring mobility. The less hamstring mobility you have, the less height you're going to need on the box. You can grab a dumbbell, it can be 15 pounds, 25 pounds, 35 pounds, just something that pulls us through the range of motion. And this is one of those movements, probably one of only like 3 or 4 movements you're ever gonna hear us say, purposely round your back. And what we're trying to do is to create space and length in that posterior chain, especially from the mid-back down through the glutes and the hamstrings. So I'm gonna think from the top down, I'm gonna start rounding down my chin, tucking my chin, rounding my upper back, really trying to focus and concentrate on going 1 vertebrae at a time.
And I'm just gonna let this weight pull me down until I can't go any further, and then I'll stand back up.
Again, I'm not trying to get a big bend in my legs. I'm trying to avoid shooting my butt back too far. And all of this is coming from that rounding motion. So I'll tuck my chin, go down, round down, letting that weight pull me down.
And then I'll reverse direction on the way up. So I'll round back up.
Again, we're not going for a significant amount of weight, but what you'll notice over the course of those reps, you'll notice the dumbbell helping you get a little closer to the floor or to the bottom of that box. So that is our Jefferson curl. Our last movement is our clamshell, and our clamshell is for the outer part of our hips. This is going to be helpful for those of you who tend to struggle in your squats when you get tired and having those knees dive in. Those will help make those muscles stronger to help keep your knees pulled out in a good solid position. Setup here is really important. The wrong setup position can cause you to recruit some of the muscles that are more towards the front of your legs instead of the muscles in the back of the hips. We're looking to use this back here. So you're gonna set up on the ground on your side. Your hips are gonna be stacked over each other. So you can see I'm not like this with my hips back, but I'm stacked over each other. And my knees are tucked up. Knees are a little lower than the hips, but they're tucked up towards my chest. This area, my torso, I'm trying to avoid getting much movement here. I don't wanna do this. I wanna keep that where it is. And then I'm gonna go and lift my left knee up as far as I can and come back down. Again, when I lift this left knee up, I'm not trying to do this where I open up. I wanna force this muscle out here to help pull that knee up. And then it's back down. Nice and controlled. We're not worried about speed. You can see how my foot isn't lifting up. My left foot staying in contact with my right foot. And I'm under control here. If I want, I can change position, see if it helps me feel it more. But again, my hips are stacked on top of each other as I lift up. For those of you who are really solid in that position, we can go with a band to add a little bit of resistance, but so long as we only want to add so much resistance while moving well. We don't want to add so much resistance that we have to tilt our hips back or tilt to the side. We're looking for quality positioning during this movement. So those are the 4 movements for our lower accessory, and that's what we're going to be doing for the next 4 to 6 weeks there.